The conscious mind is like the parent. The unconscious, subconscious mind is like the child, the young child that will believe anything the parent tells them. First of all, NLP is an outstanding resource. And for somebody who's recovering, they've just discovered they've got focal dystonia, they're going to start the recovery journey. Both the physios and the neurologists will say to them, hey, if you can get some NLP coaching to help tie this all together. And one of them in particular said, it's like a scaffolding framework. Pianists, violinists, all different kinds of dystonia, and then in brass with the focal dystonia with the embouchure. So I help them. Then a lot of them are having more of a sense of a purpose, that not only am I helping myself, but I'm going to be helping other people. And this is where specific mindset coaching comes to play. The default setting of the human mind is, what could go wrong? What if? And this is what I hear most of the time. I would say it's up in the 70, 80, 90 percentile. What if all this work I did doesn't pay off and I turn up to the ensemble and I get my shake back? And I say, what if you play the best you've ever played even before your injury? Musicians, we are the last group to come forward and be public about this because musicians generally would feel embarrassed for anybody to know that they're getting mindset coaching. When I was asking myself, how can I afford this? We could phrase it with a bit of an NLP phrase. What's it going to cost me if I don't?
Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. Today is a special day for me because I get to interview somebody who is a big part of my own personal journey through injury. I recently joined forces with him in the mindset aspect of my recovery. He is a certified neurolinguistic programming coach and master practitioner and life coach and all sorts of different coaches and everything. He's just an amazing guy I've had the pleasure of getting to know. He also is the principal tubist in the Sydney Symphony, and that's kind of how we got connected through and another former guest of the show, Dr. Bronwyn Ackerman, referred me to him. And we're just going to talk all things mindset, all things NLP, and musician injury-related type of subjects. And I'm just so excited for you guys to get to know him like I do. And Steve Rossé, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Clark, good day, and welcome. Welcome. I'm usually the one
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, welcome to you. Rossé, Mr. Steve Rossé, thank you so much for being here. I mean, it's just, when I first got to know you, we had an interesting first conversation because when I called you or texted you, I just realized that, or what I was planning on talking to you about was just picking your brain about coaching and NLP and all this stuff. At the time, I mean, it's so funny now that I think about it, and we've laughed about this since, but at the time, as I've been preparing to launch my own coaching campaign and everything, that I hadn't sought out my own coaching myself outside of like the physical and stuff like that, the physical aspect of my recovery. And I just really appreciate the perspective you've given me, being my coach and helping me to see my injury and my career, my upcoming career as a coach from a different light. And so, today what I wanted to just kind of start out with neurolinguistic programming and the other types of certifications that you have, what have you seen through your training with those and helping musicians go through their injuries and other things that they deal with? What are some of the common mindsets that you see people have when they come to you saying, hey, I need help, I've got dystonia? I know that's something that a lot of people come to you for. I've got dystonia or X, Y, and Z type of injury. What are some of the mindsets that they come to you with, if that makes sense?
Sure, Clark. People come to me, as you mentioned, they might be on a road to recovery with focal dystonia, and they are seeing their neurologists and their physio, as we might say, that help them move on past focal dystonia and recover. Also, people who don't have a dystonia and worry about other things like maybe the performance will not be like a good one in the past. Any kind of performance anxiety. I would say that 2/3, if not 3/4 of the people who come to me are on the audition trail, and they feel like they're missing that top 5, top 3, top 1% edge in the mindset game, as we say. They've read the books, the Inner Game of Music books, the Inner Game of Tennis
Sure,
books,
yeah.
viewed videos, self-help, maybe some Tony Robbins things. And then to work with somebody one-on-one or in a group with an experienced coach, specifically experienced in helping the niche of musicians, is basically what I do. And to answer your question, what do people come to me for? It's basically to equip them with a more confident mindset that they're going to see this through. And what I do as a coach is I help them step into their best possible version of themselves, their fullest potential, which a lot of times we don't see when we are in our own head. We have our experiences, we have the stories in our head, we have a habit of trying the same things over and over, but more or maybe slightly different. And what a coach does is a coach will be able to understand and learn where you are coming from and then give you other perspectives and draw out that genius, that best potential self that you've got within you that you hadn't have even realized. And with that, putting you into a higher emotional state, some clear mindset strategies, way to talk to yourself, and ways to action quicker results forward. And as far as people coming to me with dystonia, as mentioned, they might already be seeing a performance psychologist. They will be seeing maybe a neurologist, and again a physio, and then the mindset coach is what really helps them put this all together and help them to mind travel into the future when they have recovered and become a better version of themselves because of this growth that they've gone through as a person and as a musician through the recovery of injury.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad you phrased it the way you did because um, one of the goals that I've realized that I have with this show is to show musicians the importance of working on personal development outside of the practice room and how much it informs what goes on inside the practice room. And I should have asked you this before, like to start off, but I kind of know a little bit about why you got started in this field. I mean, you're already a very accomplished tubist at this point in your career, but why has this become so important to you personally, becoming a coach and helping musicians get through this? Like, what is your background with all this, and how did it kind of propel you into what you're doing now?
Mm. Well, there are three aspects to this. One is the bouts and the challenges I have had within myself, my internal self, through performance anxiety secretly. I probably represent a large percentage of musicians who deep inside are thinking like, oh no, what if they don't like me? What if I mess this up? Oh my gosh, I'm playing now in this orchestra with this conductor, and this is a really hard part. The cameras are on me. What if I mess up? Performance anxiety that then manifests into physical symptoms like shaking, dry mouth, losing sense of time, even. And so I read the books that I knew that were available, came up with some mindset strategies on my own that helped. And then when I went into the Life Coaching Academy and was introduced to NLP, neurolinguistic programming, I thought, oh my gosh, this is the golden ticket. This is the answer, because neurolinguistic programming stands for programming or reprogramming the way the neurology of your brain operates when you think, when you talk to yourself. So NLP, neuro, L, language, NLP programming, neurolinguistic programming, trains ourselves to start talking to ourselves differently in patterns and in ways that we would not have possibly imagined without the help of an NLP coach. And then the way we talk to ourselves will change the directions of the neural pathways of how our brain operates. We will start thinking differently. We will start being in a different emotional state. And then as soon as that starts happening, then the magic occurs. And rather than focusing on what could go wrong, we are basically laser focused on what we are going to create and what we are able to do, and that we are getting better all the time, and that we trust this process. And that's basically what fascinated me. I was playing with one of the world's leading orchestras and found out that a very high percentage of the musicians were taking beta blockers, seeing performance psychologists, seeing psychologists to help them deal with their lives because they were in a position where they are under a lot of stress, a lot of touring, a lot of comparing and reviews and critics. And
Right.
some of the musicians are getting older where it's not as easy as when they were younger. And I think you get the whole picture. And when I was playing with that orchestra, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. I would love to become a performance psychologist, go back to school, get a psychology PhD, and help musicians. And what I found out was that um, the neurolinguistic programming in itself, combined with my experience as a global successful teacher for 35 years, with my orchestral experience and my own journey, that has been the sort of golden recipe to help musicians. And yeah, they're, as you know, Clark, they're basically lining up at the doorstep, and we're basically looking at a waiting list pretty soon on who I'm going to be able to help and work with.
Wow. That's
And
awesome, man.
with a lot of my clients that I work with, I do um, allow them and encourage them also to see a performance psychologist. And the feedback I usually get is they're not a brass player who've been at Carnegie Hall with 3 orchestras that are all world class and felt the nerves. They've got the degrees, they've got the certifications, they've got the formal training at the highest university level of getting a doctorate or a PhD in the field of psychology. So what I usually say to my members and clients, I said, go to the psychologist. So you get that resource and you come to me. So you have my resource. So I'm a coach, not a psychologist.
Hmm. Right. Maybe let's go a little bit deeper into that just to help people, because, just to help people who may be thinking, well, what are the main differences between a psychologist and even a performance psychologist, not a clinical psychologist, but a performance psychologist and a coach? What are the main differences between
Mhm.
those two?
Well, a coach, um, a musical mindset coach is very similar to an athletic or a sporting, a mindset coach for athletes, where an athlete will, let's say, nearly qualifying for the Olympics or going to the Olympics and getting the bronze, and they want the gold. And they don't need, there's nothing wrong with them. They don't need anything fixed or corrected. They need to be coached on how to be their real full potential, where they might be operating somewhere between 60 to 99% of their full potential. The coach gets them to get as close to 100% as possible. And even the coach doesn't know what that is at the time they start. And it's an
Sure.
incredible learning journey between coach and client, where a psychologist, on the other hand, will be more the person that you're going to see when something's not going well. It Clinical psychology is more associated with, in general terms, not in every case, but in general terms, mental health. Mental
Right.
health. So we want to be mentally healthy, and then we want to be at our fullest potential. So we can be completely mentally healthy as a person. We can be mentally healthy as a musician and operate at 60% of our potential and be absolutely fine. And these kind of people might go to a psychologist and say, I would like to see you to help me move forward. And that psychologist will help you. However, their primary job is to get people from, um, you know, below the default line to
Get their head above
get them
water. Yeah.
above line. And we do work
Yeah.
hand in hand, psychologists and coaches. And I always check in with my clients and say, hey, and let's check in on your mental health, whatever that might be for that person. And some of the people I work with will be seeing the psychologist as well for the mental health. And then I get them to be their fullest potential.
Sure. I've got another question about that, because there is something that I hadn't heard of until I met you, and we've worked a little bit in our sessions together. It's a type of therapy called timeline therapy, right? And you're certified in administrating that type of service. So kind of go into what is timeline therapy, and then how does it really relate to musicians going through injury? Like, how would it be a benefit to musicians going through injury? Because unfortunately, psychologists are very sometimes harder to come by. I think technology is making it a little bit easier to access them now, but especially in my area, it's very hard to get in to see one. And so somebody who's certified in timeline therapy may be able to serve the person going through an injury in a different way. And so what kind of, go into that and
Sure.
what that entails.
Timeline therapy is a trauma reduction therapy, and it was developed by, at least the timeline therapy that I am certified in, was developed by a psychiatrist in the UK named Tad James, who created this therapy to help returning soldiers from war, to help
Right.
them alleviate and deal with their PTSD from war and their families. And it's been very successful, so successful that it's been officially endorsed by King Charles. So I was able to be trained by the head trainer here in Australia, who was trained by Tad James himself. And we learned it as if we were, in our training program, we were trained to elicit the timeline therapy as if we were treating somebody who has PTSD from a traumatic accident or war or something like that. And when I was going through the training, I thought, this will be great for musicians because we have injured musicians.
Absolutely.
And your injury can come from a practice room or from just being on the instrument a certain amount of time in a certain way. And this part of the brain doesn't know or doesn't care where the injury comes from. The trauma is the same. So with timeline therapy, we deal with the primary negative emotions. Like, let's say I've got an injury. Am I angry? Probably. Am I sad? Yes. Am I scared? My job might be on the line. My whole dream for the future. Yes, I'm scared. Am I hurt? Yes. Do I feel guilty? Not sure. Is there shame, blame, all those things? So what the timeline therapy process does is we go back into time and revisit the person who we are working with, how they were before they experienced any aspect of this injury, and remind them that part of their spirit, their emotional state, their dreams, their abilities, it's all still there. Now, what we need to do is we need to revisit those traumatic events and see what we can learn from those events. And that's basically how it works. So the musicians that I work with through timeline therapy doesn't have to be dystonia. It could be, oh, a teacher expected me to win and I didn't win 20 years ago and it's still affecting my performances. Let's do a timeline therapy on that. And then they come out going like, oh, it's not about that teacher after all. Oh, what have I learned? How does this empower you? And then we throw in the NLP and then just design and program a desired way of thinking, being, and doing. So that's how we combine the NLP and the timeline
Sure.
therapy specifically for musicians.
Sure. And one of the things I also wanted to ask you that's tied to this is, as a coach, like you said, we're wanting to take them from where they are and higher, right? And not necessarily take them like back to a normal, healthy state. We're wanting to take them to that next level. But at the same time, especially for musicians going through injury, I really believe that a coaching model can be really beneficial for a musician going through injury, even if they are feeling all those really, really difficult things that can affect their mental health. That's why we have you on the show today, right? But at the same time, how do you help as a coach in that type of model? How do you help them like feel the feels, but then not let them stay in them for too long? Does that make sense?
Yes. We start by identifying patterns. I would ask the person I'm working with, we usually start with our one-on-ones. How are you feeling? How have you
Sure.
been feeling this week? And to give Tony Robbins credit for his coined phrase, emotion creates motion, meaning
Sure.
whatever emotional state you are in, that will basically dictate your behaviors and actions. So we want to address the emotional state first, and the emotional state could be a habitual holding pattern from the last year, 5 years, 10 years. Some of it could be related to trauma, bad experiences, or just stories in the person's head that don't need to be there and they're holding themselves back. So what we do is we get them out of the undesired emotional state by simply asking them, what emotional state would you like to be in? Let's imagine I have my magic wand. What emotional state would I like to be in? And they will talk about what emotional state they would like to be in. Then we will go back with a timeline strategy, which is different than therapy. We will go back. Was there a time in the past when you felt like that? Oh, not really. But
Sure.
oh, yeah, maybe one time. And then we do an NLP semi-hypnotic elicitation to have them go back and revisit those old emotions that were desired. They're still in you. We just need to crank them up so loud that the undesired emotions dissolve. And then we go through some NLP elicitations to embed and program these desired emotions, because NLP is a practice that is in line with the theories in the field of psychology that our subconscious minds are driving us 90 to 95%. And what we do know about subconscious mind is the subconscious mind loves imagery and emotions.
Right.
And if we can, with our conscious mind, feed the desired emotions to our unconscious mind or subconscious mind, the conscious mind is like the parent. The unconscious subconscious mind is like the young child that will believe anything the parent tells them. Back in the days of believing in Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, whatever your parents tell you, yes, our subconscious minds are like that our whole lives. So we need to teach our subconscious minds, this is the emotions we want to have. And this is how we're going to feel when we feel these emotions. And these are the results that you'll want to get. By the way, what are the reasons for you coming to coaching? Right. So you want to get these results. Well, you have to be able to feel what you're going to feel when you get those results before you get those results. So we use a combination of going back into time and uh, discovering or rediscovering past wonderful experiences with wonderful emotions and say, you know what? You do have the power to turn on those emotions whenever you want. I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to experience it. And then we might go through meditations. I designed guided meditations. They're recorded. Then they can listen to them every day to get them to stay in that desired emotional state, because our minds work on patterns. And if we are habitually thinking the same 25 negative thoughts a day, repeated over and over and over for the past weeks, months, years, it's going to take some time to break that pattern. Default 6 weeks. So I hope this is answered clearly. This is a coach talking to a coach on how we would help somebody move forward in this area, and that's basically how we would do it in a summarized form.
Sure. No, yeah. And every situation is every person's gonna be different, and the intricacies and different exercises that you would do, obviously, but just want to get that insight, because what I've learned is that you have to give space to feel the feels, especially at the beginning, because there's that loss that has to be grieved. I had one of my personal friends and former professors on the show last season. He's a performance psychologist and performance coach now. And he said that grieving is a peak performance skill, the ability to do that, but in a way that's helpful. And
Yes,
so
absolutely.
it's something that, and that's something that, for everyone out there, that's something that you work with a coach, is to find out where's that dividing line, or with a psychologist or therapist, or somebody that's able to help you to delineate those two things. And a word about those meditations. Just a quick plug for what you do. So I told you this before we recorded, but for those of you out there in podcast land, we didn't start this recording this when we were originally planning, because I had a very stressful work situation going on, and I knew, I was like, okay, I can't be recording a podcast episode in this state. And so I literally turned on one of the meditations that you made for me in one of our sessions right before I logged on, and it worked. I mean, it's just incredible how repeated actions, for good or bad, will just help you get into I'll snap over here inside the camera lens. But how those things will become your new patterns, because that's what NLP is redesigning new patterns for your mental state. It's an oversimplified way, but I want to kind of go a little bit deeper into this. Do something that we haven't done on the show yet. I think this would be really beneficial for anybody who hasn't heard anything about neurolinguistic programming up until this point, so you can see how this would benefit all of you who are going through an injury right now. So let's create a hypothetical situation for you. So you've got, I'm just going to make a flautist, and they come in, they just suffered an injury. They heard about you through the podcast. They reach out to you and say, hey, I just went through an injury. Like last week, I can't play. I have to take off 6 months. So how would you use NLP to help to serve that musician, like before they are going through the bulk of their recovery, during their recovery, and then after? Like, how does NLP fit into that whole recovery timeline?
Uh-huh. First of all, NLP is an outstanding resource, and for somebody who's recovering, they've just discovered they've got focal dystonia, they're going to start the recovery journey. NLP is not like the thing that's going to fix the focal dystonia. What
Sure,
NLP coaching
definitely.
will do is, when you're working with your physio and learning how to get your muscles back, and the neurologist, both the physios and the neurologists will say to them, hey, at least the ones I know, if you can get some NLP coaching to help tie this all together. And one of them in particular said it's like a scaffolding framework to hold that
Sure, absolutely.
client. They're called a client, they're a patient. I call them a member of my group, to hold them up and move them through faster, and to move them through the journey in a as positive of emotional state as possible, and for them to go beyond what they're learning from their physio and their neurologist, the GP, performance psychologist, and help them do other things in their life that they now have opportunities to do that they did not have opportunities to do before, while accelerating the recovery process in the highest emotional state possible. An example is, I was working with somebody in their mid-50s, and the neurologist said, "You know what? You should lose some weight and get physically a little bit stronger in your body, not just your lips." And this person has been a member of my coaching program, and then they came to me say, and I said, "So, how was the session with your neurologist?" They said I need to get physically fit, and the coaching process took this person from whatever weight they were, losing at least 20 pounds in a quick amount of time, getting strong, getting healthily addicted to the gym and exercise, and cutting down on any sort of food that is just not good for your neurological system at that age. Getting on to healthy foods. And although I am also not the health coach, I'm sort of like the ringmaster. What is your health coach saying? Your personal trainer. And what is your PT? Sorry, that's the PT. What is your neurologist saying? What is your physio saying. And then I support all that because they might just come, they said, oh, it's going slower than I thought it would. And I want to be fully recovered by this particular date. Well, I help the already cars going like,
We got
I
some
help
sayings
them
on
with
this
that.
show for that.
I help them with that. That's already a mindset that's just setting you up for more frustration. And I help them reframe or
Mm.
redefine what a goal setting is. We're going to change that to a way of being and a way of accelerating. And we say, well, what if you don't become fully recovered and you come out of this a redesigned, remodeled player and you're better than ever? And when you're teaching, you can help the next generation coming up avoid getting to that point where you did when you got your injury. And when they start the injury process, I heard a statistic from a very well known neurologist say that 30%, a theory that there's a theory that 30% of the world's population will be susceptible to some sort of dystonia or focal dystonia by the time they're in their mid 30s if they
Huh.
overuse a certain action or muscle. Athletes get it, golfers. The thing about the athletes is they usually retire at the age that the musicians are getting focal dystonia. Golfers get it, tennis players get it, pianists, violinists, all different kinds of dystonia, and then in brass with the focal dystonia with the embouchure. So I help them. Um, then a lot of them are having more of a sense of a purpose that not only am I helping myself, but I'm going to be helping other people. And this is where specific mindset coaching comes to play.
Hey guys, I just want to interrupt the show real quick and just tell you about something I've been working on for a long time that I'm so excited to share with you. Like I've said in the past, you have the potential to make your injury become a benefit to you, an asset to you. But at the same time, I know the feeling of being lost, not knowing who to turn to, where to go, what resources to use, all sorts of things, and also how to reframe the situation, the mental skills that's needed to be able to do that. And so if you are one of those people looking for that resource, that help, that coaching, I want to tell you about something I've been working on, and that is Musician Unchained. Musician Unchained is now the newest coaching platform for musicians going through injury. It is intended to help you view your situation in a way that benefits you and make the changes in your life that you need to become the best version of yourself because of your injury. Your injury being the impetus for that change. I would love to be able to help you in any way that I can, even if that means sending you somewhere else to someone who can better help you. And so if you are interested in working together one-on-one, visit our website, musicianunchained.com/let's hang for more details. All right, let's get back to the show. Gotcha. And so then as they're coming out of their injury, a lot of I know the research is there for specifically sports injuries, but we're starting to find that this is obviously going to be the same for musicians. It's that fear of re-injury as they're coming out. How would you use, and I'm glad you mentioned reframing. I'm going to ask you about that again, but how would you use NLP or an aspect of NLP to help them to move forward? Now, like their injuries in their rearview mirror, right? But they still have that trepidation of like, well, holy crap, what if I have to go through that again? Or what if I'm doing it wrong and it will happen again or something like that?
The most common thing that I've experienced with the people I work with is to say they've been out of playing with an ensemble for a year to 4 years,
Yeah.
and they've pretty much recovered, where when they're playing on their own, they're fine. They step into a rehearsal, play one easy part, and then it moves a few steps backwards and they get frustrated. So I help them with that, with the visualizations and that imagery, all that NLP, so that they're focusing on and creating what possibly would be the best case scenario for this experience, where the default human's mind setting, the default setting of the human mind is what could go wrong? What if? And this is what I hear most of the time. I would say it's up in the 70, 80, 90 percentile. What if all this work I did doesn't pay off, and I turn up to the ensemble and I get my shake back. And I say, what if you play the best you've ever played even before your injury? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Let's think of that. Let's program the mind, and we're going to do two things. One is we're going to create a program for your mind that it's going to go as well as you could possibly imagine and a bit better. And we're going to implant that program into your mind, because your subconscious mind is driving you 90 to 95%. And we are also going to have our little emergency plan in case the shake comes back or the middle register is not attacked or whatever the dystonia symptoms had been. If they come back, then we're going to have a plan of action. This is what we're going to do. And I give the analogy of going on an airplane. In the unlikely event of an emergency, and then they just take you through traumatic, if there's fire, if there's water, if we're in the ocean, if you're by the emergency, if there's fire, don't do this till you go like, oh my gosh. And then the oxygen mask will come out. Put on yours first, and you got life vests under your seats and all that. Holy moly. And I'm going on a plane, as we do, and we notice that, say, yeah, it's good to have these safety precautions. We're not going to need it. However, if we do need it, I'll know what to do. At least there are enough people around me to know what to do. And I will be as safe and protected as I possibly could be under the circumstances in the event of the worst case scenario, which is chances are almost nil. So we want to remind the people that I'm working with, you know what? The plane could fall out of the sky. Your shake might come back. So if that happens, this will be the plan of attack. How do you feel about that? Fine. All right, now let's implant in your mind how it's going to go. They already know it's going to go well because they can do it on their own. When they're with the band or the orchestra and just rehearsal, then it's stage fright with your own colleagues. And then they're going into another world, which is called fear of what other people are thinking of them. They're not thinking about what if it doesn't go well. They're thinking about what people might think if it doesn't go well. Other people. And we get them to stop thinking about other people. Think about yourself. In the practice room, it's fine. So let's work on how just moving that in the practice room, copy, paste, put it on stage in Carnegie Hall with all the world's cameras. You're live on the internet with a close-up of your face. Let's do that.
Yeah. Man, there's a couple of things I want to highlight first, and I apologize. I was looking down because I wanted to look up a study that I recently heard of. Cornell University just published a study, I think about 2 months ago, that found that 85% of the things that people worry about never happen. And then 75% of the things that do happen, people reported that they found out they could get through it better than they thought they could.
Yes.
So like we're talking, I mean, it's just like a mind-blowing study to me that that our brain really does create these these scenarios, that we really just don't need to worry about. But if we do, let's create a plan. Let's create a contingency plan. And then we'll have that confidence going into those situations saying, I love how you use what if, because that's so brilliant, because we are always using it as a negative. What if this happens? What if that happens? Well, what if this good thing happens? What if that good thing happens? Because we're so hardwired for the negative. And then the injury reinforces that, right? That negative bias that we have just evolutionarily. And when we are able to turn it on its head and use what if as an advantage, as an advantageous question, and be able to look at the whole situation objectively like that, I think that it's a game changer for a lot of people. And this is why this type of work is so important, you guys, is because we're not naturally hardwired to think this way. But those who are able to harness this type of methodology and I guess thinking pattern, it just pays dividends. I mean, your clients and your members have been able to win some of the greatest jobs ever, right? And one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, you had mentioned on another podcast or video that I had seen that when you worked with the Concertgebouw Orchestra, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did they have a full-time or part-time performance coach that was with the orchestra, like a mindset coach or something to that extent?
Well,
Did I hear that right?
what I got, the information I got informally in social settings from some of the musicians is that the orchestra does provide a performance psychologist. And in the Sydney Symphony Orchestra as well, we have a performance psychologist. And every time there's a nearly every time there's a general meeting of the orchestra, they said, now remember, we've got this psychologist here for you for whatever it happens to be. And talking to the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, quite a few of the
Sure.
members are getting coaching with me. And you know who they are. They're in our group. And going back to the Concertgebouw, yeah, that it was something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And what my takeaway from that was, oh my gosh, this is as good as any orchestra anywhere ever.
Yeah.
And we've got a high percentage of these musicians being very resourceful in getting help uh, through with a performance psychologist. And with a lot of them, it wouldn't necessarily be performance nerves or things like that. It was just dealing with the stress and whatever that happens to be. And I did talk to some of the members who were seeing some of these psychologists and were just very grateful and appreciative of this help. And the thing was, it was all quiet and it was all secret. Because when you go to the orchestra's concert, do you see the orchestra's performance psychologist in the program? No. Do you see the people who are on the disabled list on the program? No. Go to a sporting event, you see those things.
Yeah.
You have
And that's
like
why, yeah.
the champion of the Australian Open a couple of years ago, Ash Barty, a wonderful Australian tennis player. And she says, I want to thank my coach, Ben Crow. Without Ben, I would, this is a mindset coach, not a tennis coach. He's a surfer. He's a surfer. He doesn't play tennis.
Nice.
And publicly, and she'll put, these are my coaches. This is my tennis coach. This is my mindset coach. This is my performance psychologist. 3. Now, this is resourceful. And we talk about this in the coaching space. The more resourceful you are, the more chance you have of winning. This is an argument I get from musicians. How can I afford that? My lessons and this and that. And I'm thinking, well, you probably already have $100,000 more of student debt, or parents paid for you, or taxpayers paid for you if you didn't pay anything, or a scholarship donor. What did your instrument cost? And every time you take an audition, and especially for people who audition intercontinentally, we have people coming to Australia from Europe, the United States to audition for us. What are you paying for your flights, your accommodation? And if you were to throw in a couple $1,000s more on top of that to get you over the line, to get you to play your best audition ever, so you've spent your $5,000 or whatever on your audition trip and your $100,000 on your instrument, you have $300,000 of student loans, a couple thousand more, even if it's tens of thousands with some of the coaches out there, to enable you to be absolutely better than you thought you could be in your mindset, in your playing. That's the question. Do athletes do it? Absolutely. Do CEOs
100%.
and
Yeah.
executives do it? They have to. It's business. Musicians, we are the last group to come forward and be public about this, because musicians generally would feel embarrassed for anybody to know that they're getting mindset coaching. And most of the professional musicians on any instrument that I work with, they say, please keep this confidential that we're working together. I say, absolutely. We are 100%
Right.
confident. Nobody knows who
Mhm.
I'm working with. And this is all protected by the ICF, International Coaching Federation. However, every time I hear that, I'm thinking like, I can't wait to be like the athletes and say, hey, the Adelaide Crows are getting this mindset coach out so they don't think about, gee, what if I mess up this kick? Or here comes the ball. What if I miss it? Or tomorrow's the grand final. Gee, if only this and only that. here's the mindset coach, and they're being interviewed on TV like you're interviewing me, and it's in their program, and it's quite obvious. We even have a conductor who comes to the Sydney Symphony quite often, who works with this specific football team, the Adelaide Crows, Australian football, and he said, "Yeah, I'm studying their mindset coaches on how they do this and that. And they're actually engaging me to help coach them. How a musician would coach an athlete, how an athlete would coach a musician." I'm really nerding out on this stuff. I'm like, oh, I love this. This is great. But musicians, so I'm going to put on my tuxedo and I'm confident and I'm going to don't tell anybody I'm taking beta blockers. Nobody needs to know. And and they're in this not all, a lot are in this silent discomfort, we'll say. And as soon as we're able to say, "Hey, I'm John and I take beta blockers and I get mindset coaching." Great. Wonderful. It's no different than a Hollywood actor coming clean and saying, "You know what? I've got medical depression, so I've got a psychologist and I'm taking some medication for it. Now I feel all better." I would assume that every fan of this actor would be going, "Great. Wonderful." Bit of a, yeah.
No, I mean, you're hitting the nail directly on the head, man. We've talked about this. I was an athlete before I was a musician.
Yes.
And the sport coaching, I'll say, for lack of a better way to put it, I mean, the model that coaches use in that setting is not something that we're used to in the musical sphere. But I'll say that anybody who has had a professor or a director or anybody who may act a little bit more like an athletic coach in the way that they interact with their musicians have been some of the most impactful people in those musicians' lives. And I want to illustrate this a little bit deeper with something that's talked about a lot in the business world. In season 1, I talked a little bit about the power of investing in yourself when you're going through an injury in one of our solo episodes. But I didn't really talk about these two principles, and that's ROI and COI. And so ROI is the big one, right? It's the return on your investment. And so when we're talking about this mindset stuff and you're seeing all the people who are going through it and succeeding or going through it and getting through their injury and coming out a stronger, more confident, all of the above type of musician and human being, that's the return on their investment. And what I've learned in my personal life is that obviously you have to be choosing on what investments you're going to take when and things like that. But you have more control over your resources than you think you do. The two of them that immediately come to mind are time and money.
Yes.
And this is something I've personally struggled with until very recently, is that realizing that I am in complete control of how I choose to use my time. And I am in complete control of how I choose to use my money. Now, there's consequences to both. If I choose to invest in coaching, that means that I may have to go without some things. I mean, there's no, when Steve says that, guys, he's not saying that you completely, throw caution to the wind and you're ignoring your responsibilities and everything. It's just this mindset that you have, that you're in control of the situation. And it's a choice. It's a decision that you have to make. Am I right on that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a decision you have to make. And you can use these two, ROI, and I'll talk about COI, but you can use these as a barometer, as a gauge on how you're going to make those choices. So when people who are investors or businessmen or business men or women or athletes, people that make these types of investments, the two things they look at are how is this going to help them grow either their mental or external resources, right? Then COI is the cost of inaction. And this is something that, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, all these big entrepreneurial business people and mindset people talk about is, what is this going to cost me if I don't take action on it? And this is one of the biggest things that I hope musicians going through an injury get from this entire conversation, and musicians in general, is if you're going through an injury and you're really struggling and you're thinking, okay, how am I going to make this work? well, how are you going to make it work if you don't take that action, if you don't take that step? If you're going through performance anxiety and you're tanking in all your auditions, the cost of inaction and not getting coaching is nothing changes, right? And that's just not going to help you. And so, like, I guess I wasn't intending for this to be like just a big advertisement for coaching, but I guess it is, and I'm fine with that, because I can't stress this enough, guys. It's about going through an injury is about you becoming the best version of yourself, and the injury is just the impetus for that. And then when you come back from your injury, or if you move on from your injury, because that's also a possibility for some people, you're going from it and having just a much more enriched life experience that you can bring to the next activities in your life, whether that be music and performing or something else. And so with that, the reason why I originally asked you about the Concertgebouw Orchestra and clarified that fact was just because I wanted to see and help my audience through you see how valuable this could be. And you've worked with people who are in other orchestras that may not have that resource, and the differences that you may have seen in between the musicians in either that, it doesn't have to be the Concertgebouw, but musicians that have gotten that resource and used it versus those who haven't. What's the difference?
It's an amazing difference. And going back to what you were saying before I answer the question is, COI, we can phrase it with a bit of an NLP phrase. What's it going to cost me if I don't?
Right.
Or as one of our M4C members said, when I joined Steve's program, I was asking myself, how can I afford this? Now I'm looking back on it. How could have I afforded not to?
Right. Exactly.
We have a lot of wonderful things happening with the Sydney Symphony Orchestra. Very proud to be a member of the SSO. One of the things that we do is we have a coach coming in. They were saying, "Hey, Steve, what would you think about doing a coaching thing for the orchestra?" I'm saying, "No, I'm a member of the orchestra. Get somebody else."
There you go.
Otherwise, I'll coach our musicians privately, one-on-one. That's fine.
Sure.
And so we got a really good coach, and she came in and said, "Hey, guess what? All expenses paid to the musicians. 20 of you. And we're going to go off to some resort for a week, and we're going to work on mindset and mental health, wellness, the whole thing.
Amazing.
And then we're going to start talking about our values." Wonderful. And I'm going, wonderful. Now, I was coming back to Adelaide building my business. I had some big projects on. So I said, oh, next year. And they got about 15 musicians. And most musicians are going like, well, no, thank you. For whatever reason, with all respect. No, thank you. The ones that did it came back. If you can say happiness, gratitude, love, all bundled up in a form of aura energy, these people came back like, and they're playing, already wonderful playing, their playing was better. And when something was challenging in the workplace or musically, they just were stepping into the best version of it. And I was just saying to one of them was an M4C member as well. And I just said, "Hey, power of coaching, huh?" And he said, "Yeah." And the coach says to me, the coach doing the program was saying to me, "You know what it is a lot of times the people who really need it are the ones who won't volunteer.
Yeah.
And the ones who don't really need it, do it, and they just come out better." And that's another example of what coaching is. People who just want to be the best version of themselves. And this is what a lot of people don't realize is it's easy to stay the same, to stay with our problems, to complain about them, get attention from them. And we get addicted to this feeling. What's hard is to step out of that, change our attitudes, change our actions, go do something different, pay some money, turn up on Zoom, whatever happens to be, go to that retreat to do something that's different than our pattern behavior. That is hard. And in NLP coaching, we say, guess what, folks? It often, if not usually, needs to get harder in order for it to get better.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is choose your hard. I actually have it on a sticky note on my wall here in my studio /bedroom. And And it's, I mean, let's just put it this way, guys. Going through NLP or going through coaching, whether it's NLP or not, and finding a way to pay for it and putting in the work to make it effective is hard, right? It's going to be hard, right? Just like you said. But failing an audition, trudging through an injury and not growing from it, constantly dealing with performance anxiety with no tools to deal with it, that's also hard. Which one are you going to choose, right? And that my next question with that was, and you've kind of alluded to it in a little in a few ways, but some people, I know I've had conversations with a lot of musicians who are like, Clark, I tried visualization, I tried reframing, I tried meditation, and it's just not working for me. I just can't get my brain to shut up. What would you say to those people?
I would say, well, you haven't tried everything yet.
Right.
If it was a one-on-one, I would ask them what they tried, what is the result they would like to get, and then I would combine some NLP with the design meditation. And so far, it's pretty much as close to 100% as I can recollect. They come out of their meditation on the other end in a Zoom, they go like, and some just come out going,
yeah.
yes. And then I check in with them. So that's what I would say to them. And sometimes people say, it helped for a while and then it stopped helping. I said, great, let's do another one because we've chipped away at the things we need to chip away. We're we've got a long way to go. We've chipped away the first layer. Or in NLP coaching, we say it's a lot like peeling away the layers of an onion. Aha! Oh, this is a little bit better. Oh, now. And so once you move forward in one thing, you might move back, and then the next time you move forward, it'll be further and permanent. Or what will happen is you'll take small steps. Yeah, it's a little better. For example, one of my members came back from an audition. How were you at this audition? Less nervous than before. Good.
It's a dub in my book.
Or some said, I wasn't nervous at all. Apparently they were not a fan of the slide I have on my trombone. They said I should change my slide. Well, there's only so much mindset coaching can do. So, okay.
Right.
Well, are we going to change the slide or not for the next time you audition for them? Then we had a coaching session on that. And then that person was able to get clarity on that step away from the frustration of the anger, the sadness, the disappointment, and move forward.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the show. I just wanted to jump in here real quick and tell you about something that I'm really, really excited about. For a while now, I have wanted to create an even more effective resource than just the podcast that injured musicians can go to receive the support that they need. And recently I did just that. So write this down. Trust the Process Podcast Injured Musician Support Group. I know it's a long title. We're still working on that part. But this is a place where people can go now, injured musicians and even musicians who have gone through injury in the past, and people that help musicians go through injury, where they can go to receive the support that they need, whether that be ask questions, share their victories, share their frustrations, and overall just receive the community and the support that they need in a very proactive, intentional way. And so I just ask that you guys support these injured musicians by sharing this group with them, that they can receive the support that they need. Okay, enjoy the rest of the show. Man, this conversation has just flown by for me. Like, there's so many things that I just want to keep talking about. And just, again, what I really want people to get from this is that it's worth it. You know, it's so worth it. Just to put it simply, is it's worth it. The thing with these skills, it's just like anything. I was just writing another resource for my program and the other day, and just it was another reminder for me that developing skills, any skill whatsoever, is going to take time. It's going to take time, trial and error. I mean, our brain works the same way in developing any sort of pattern, right? That's not something that changes based on the skill, right? So if we're learning how to play tennis, or you're doing golf, right? You're picking up golf, right? So developing that skill from a neurological standpoint is going to be the same as learning visualization as a skill, or meditation, or reframing, being able to just like when something happens, something adverse in your life happens, being like, oh, well, this is also what it could mean, right? That is a skill, and that takes time. And I think you had said earlier that, I don't know if you would call it a minimum, but like right around 6 weeks is at least how much time that you should expect for that new neural pathway to be developed enough for it to be showing results, right? Am I
right.
correct in that?
To be solidified, so you're starting to do it as a habit.
Right, exactly.
6 weeks is an average. For some people it's a couple weeks, and for some people it's a whole year.
Yeah, and that's just kind of how it goes. Another analogy I've heard is like when you are learning something new, like if you're thinking about a farmer who has plowed his fields in the exact same, path that he always has had with his tractor's going to create ruts. But then if he just takes his steering wheel and just turns it 1 degree, it's going to be in those ruts for a while, but eventually it's going to bump out of them, which isn't going to be the most comfortable experience at first.
That's
right. But then he's going to
start
start creating new ruts, new pathways. And that is and I got that from another coach, another person that I've been listening to. That's not original to me, but the point is that it just takes little changes, little course corrections. And yeah, you do bump out of the ruts at first, and it's not a comfortable experience. But the more you do it, the more you start to see those benefits. It's all about, mental skills, NLP work, all these things, learning to see the good in the difficult. Those are all skills, and they take time, but they are so dang worth it.
Yes.
So anything else that you feel like we haven't discussed about this that you feel like would be beneficial, especially for musicians going through an injury?
Well, as per the last 5 minutes, I am hearing voices out there asking a question. Is Steve Clark, do you get coaching? And Steve's going to say, absolutely. I've been getting coaching full time for the last 4 years. And I will continue to get coaching moving forward. One of my coaches studied NLP from the NLP founder. He was my NLP trainer, then he became my life coach for 2 years. And another coach that I'm working with now is working with some really high-end people globally, and has been I don't want to say director, but the head mentor teacher of the Life Coaching Academy. She also teaches life coaching. And I've just come to her as a client. I was a student of hers before. I said, I'm going to come to you as a client. I want you to call me out, take me out of my head, help me reach my fullest potential that I'm just not seeing. And some people say, oh, Steve, oh, really? And she's just going, yep, I'll do that. And she goes, this is going to be fun. Like,
Yeah.
And I'm going to have a session with her in an hour and a half.
Oh, cool. Well, it's just,
I'm getting ready to have my mind just being blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. We're all on a journey of growth. And that's what, we all, I feel like just naturally as musicians, the extent of our growth is about the extent of our instrument.
Yes.
And the whole point of this episode, I think, has just been to show that no, there's other parts of you that need growth and need to be shown that new way of doing things. And that investment of time and money and energy and everything is going to inform your playing and your musicianship and everything that you want it to outside of the practice room. And it's just a wonderful journey that you can go on. And yes, I do receive coaching from this guy. and also, you know, physical coaching for my injury and all that stuff. But that was a very important lesson that I recently learned, was that coaches definitely should get coaching.
Absolutely. I would say don't get coaching from anybody who's not
getting
the coaching.
Yeah.
And you also want to go to somebody who's an expert in their field, right? An authority in
Sure.
specific what you're working on, which leads me to just maybe share with our audience a quote from David Goggins. I'm not sure if you've heard of David Goggins.
Oh, yeah.
Motivational speaker, former Navy SEAL, Guinness Book of World Records on pull-ups or something like that. He says,
Something.
he says, hey man, and he used the F word,
Yeah.
most of the world's population, like 99% of the world's population are operating at 60% of their potential. 60%. Now, he might be referring to how you run, how you do your pull-ups.
Sure.
He's also referring to mindset, how you could be thinking. We're only using a few percentage of our brains, but we are mostly operating at about 60% of our capacity on average until we become aware of it. Now, Clark, I think you've seen this video that I have. I have a 1-hour video where there's an exercise in there where people can find out at what percentage they are operating on. And if anybody in this audience wants to get the video, I'm happy to send it to you, Clark. You can send it to them or however it would work. So they could just see like, oh my gosh, I think my score when I started was a 69 to 71, something like that. Yeah. Powerful.
It's pretty powerful exercise. Yeah. Well, guys, get coaching, get on that train. And Steve, I got a couple of questions left before I let you go. And first of all, thank you for being willing to do this. This is just going to be so beneficial for my audience, whether they're going through an injury or not, or if they're teaching somebody going through an injury.
Sure.
And so the two questions I ask before, well, actually, let me ask you this before we get into these last two. Say somebody's out there and they're like, shoot, I need to get on this train. Where do I find Steve? Where do they find you?
Good question. The easiest, I'm just going with the times here. The easiest way is on Facebook.
Okay.
Just go to Facebook, Steve Rossé, send me a friend request and a private message, and boom, we're in contact. And I have a private group with about 5,000 musicians with mindset tips. I do a Facebook Live every week. I'll invite you to that. It's free. That's it. That'd be the best way. Otherwise, if they want to send, I'd rather share my email address and the other ways to contact after that. That's the
okay. Yeah, perfect.
primary way.
Awesome. We'll definitely reach out to him. So I asked these last two questions of all my guests. I just think it's a beautiful way to wrap everything up. And the first one was inspired by a podcast for me. I was able to get in touch with people I needed to get in touch with through a different podcast. And so if somebody were to come up to you and say, hey, Steve, I heard you on Clark's podcast. Actually, fun fact of the day, Australia is the second most, the country with the second highest amount of listens for this show. Just throwing out that, I thought that was a cool
Wonderful.
fact. Somebody comes up to you and says, I heard you on Trust the Process with Clark. I'm going through an injury myself, and it doesn't have to be focal dystonia. It doesn't have to be a certain instrument. What would be the one piece of advice that you could give that person?
I would ask them what results they would like to have. So rather than giving advice, I ask questions.
Okay.
I would say, okay, you're going through this. How would you like this to resolve? Where would you like to be 5 years from now, 1 year from now, 6 months from now? Where would you ideally like to be if you were to know all the ways to get there? How would you like to be? And once I get their answer, then I would switch to my mentoring hat and give them some options, not advice, but options on what might work for them. And if they're not already with a physio specializing in focal dystonia recovery, I'd make a couple recommendations there. I would invite them to my free resources and join some of my free training, send them some free videos to help them out, and just check in with them after a couple of weeks and let them know that they can reach out to me at any time moving forward.
Awesome. Now I got to ask you one more question now because you just sparked something there. Um, coaching, we're always talking about forward thinking. And before we were talking about how we don't necessarily want to get into the mindset of, I need to get to healed up by this date. So what's the difference between like, where do you want to be in 6 months from now or a year from now versus I need to be back by this date, XYZ mindset? Does that make sense? I just need to ask you that question.
They're both a little bit the same because, in 5 years, I want to be here. I want to have this, want to be doing this in 2 years, in 1 year, in 6 months, in a couple weeks. So they are the same. What I do is I ask them this way. In a year, in this particular area, playing a musical instrument, taking auditions, performing, what kind of musician would you like to be? Describe how you would like to be, what you want to be, what you want to be doing, able to be doing, what you want to be feeling, what you want to be believing in yourself, and then being able to back that up, believing in yourself and feeling, doing, and being. What are those? A lot of what questions. It's NLP.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what
Yeah.
questions. And then by answering that, they'll sort of formulate the kind of person that is their fullest potential or close to it. And then we design an action path forward. All right, start doing this differently. Start these routines. Start doing this and stop doing that, for example.
Sure.
A
Well,
metaphor is get off the cigarettes and the donuts and the soft drinks and get on the salmon, kale, and the treadmill and quit smoking. That's a metaphor. That's what we do. That's a physical. That's a physical transformation, right? We do a mindset transformation.
Sure.
Stop thinking like this. Stop thinking like what tobacco would do to your lungs, to what toxic thinking would do to your mind. You stop that. You start this. You create this, and then that will dissolve. And then you become this, and then your results will be this. And you will experience this and feel this and have this and be able to do this. By when? Sure. Let's go for it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also that all or nothing kind of cognitive distortion of like, there's a difference between where do you want to be and I need to be like, all or nothing. If I'm not here by this date, then, all bets are off from my career, right? It's that all or nothing cognitive distortion. I think it also becomes a distinguishing factor, right? So Steve, my last question for you is, I want you to go back to that day that you decided to get on this train of coaching. You've invested a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and you had certain pain points that this was caused by in your own life that we didn't necessarily get into today, but you have the opportunity to take away the causal factors of you getting coaching, like performance anxiety and the other health issues you were having, or you can leave them there and the experiences you've had since. Which would you choose?
Oh, the choice obviously is to do the hard work, hire the coach, do the work, and experience a new way of experiencing things. We have another expression in my coaching circle that says, we only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. We've only experienced what we've experienced. We have not experienced what we have not experienced.
Right.
So how do I know what I could possibly experience? I don't know, because I'm only in my head. My brain's only been in my head my whole life. Coach's brain is not in my head. Coach's brain is in the coach's head, and they're trained. They can see throughout. We with the NLP especially, we have language cues and body language cues and energy cues that we're going like, okay, this person's blah 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 blah, not in line or congruence with their potential, their higher calling. Again, their potential. So in my case, it was a combination of reflecting back on some auditions I lost out on because I was nervous, no appointment, where I could have gotten a job at the first audition, eventually getting one, and experiencing some concerts with the Concertgebouw Orchestra and in Carnegie Hall with so much anxiety that I did not enjoy that experience like I would have liked to, like I've enjoyed some other less high pressure. And then in talking to colleagues in orchestras throughout the world, have decided, you know what, I've been able to help myself. Then after that, I got the official training. Now I'm helping other people. And that's what I love doing. That's just what I do and who I am.
It's so beautiful. Man, I'm so grateful for this time that we've been able to share together, and for all you're doing for me personally, and for everything all the gold you've just given my audience. So, well, guys, this one was for the books. I hope y'all have taken notes, and this might take a few listens to really get into the nitty gritty and get all you need to get from it. So definitely do that and share it with anybody who you know who could use some coaching or is going through an injury or performance anxiety or anything like that. Also, there's the opportunity. I'd love to hear from you. Just send me a text. There's a link down in the show notes. I'm obviously going to be attaching all the things that we've talked about, Steve, and with all of your resources that you'd like to share with the audience. And if you want to support this mission that we have here at Trust the Process, there's a link to a donation form down in the show notes as well. And if you would like to work a little bit closer together, go to musicianunchained.com as well, and love to have you there. And join our newsletter. Lots of things, but join our newsletter so you don't miss any awesome stuff coming from this end of the world. So, like I always say, guys, keep on keeping on and keep trusting the process. Until next time. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of Trust the Process, the official podcast of Musician Unchained, the newest coaching program dedicated to helping musicians navigate and overcome injury. But before you go, I have a few quick ways you can stay connected and support our growing community. First of all, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a text with the link below and share your thoughts, questions, or just say hi. You can also check the show out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We also would love to see you in our Facebook support group, Trust the Process Podcast Injured Musician Support Group. If you found value in today's episode, consider making a donation to support our mission of empowering musicians worldwide. Every contribution helps us create more content and resources for you, so visit link number 2 below to support the mission. If you decide to donate, I'll send you my newest resource, the Injured Musician Toolkit, which is an ebook designed to give you tools to help you get through your injury. Subscribe to our newsletter to get exclusive insights, tips, sneak previews of episodes, and announcements straight to your inbox. Act now and I will send you a free gift. So sign up at www.musicianunchained.com/newsletter. And if you or someone you know would like to go deeper with me in the topics of injury and mindset, head over back to musicianunchained.com and check out the Let's Hang tab. As always, I want to thank Daniel Baldwin, my audio engineer, and my sister Dana Lovell for her help with the promotional materials. There is no podcast without them. Before I go, I want to tell you how much I deeply appreciate your time and support. You are not alone on this journey. There are musicians and educators out there who need this resource, and we need to get it to them. Together, we are breaking the chain of old habits and thought patterns that don't serve us anymore, and unchaining the potential within ourselves to face each challenge with strength and resilience. So, as I always say, keep on keeping on and keep trusting the process. Until next time.